Hi everyone. Got together here at a Home Depot store here in Ontario. We're going to put together a little maintenance video on the Klassen Bronze key cutting machine for the benefit of King Marketing, so you guys will know exactly what to do when you walk into a store as far as key machine maintenance is concerned. The machine that you see here is called the YK2000. It is the pretty much standard key machine that we have throughout all the Home Depot stores across Canada. You might see a slight variation on this particular machine. There are some green colored ones, some red colored ones out there as well too, but the basics of the machine are the same. You have a blocking system here, which you put the customer's key in the left hand side, and you put the key that you take from the display in the right hand side. The block is moved up towards the cutter. You push a button here, okay, and it goes across, cuts the key once, and the key is finished for the customer. Okay, we've got some objects in front of us here. This is the actual tools that you'll actually need as you go around and call on the stores. I'll point them out as we go. Obviously, this one here is the actual cutting wheel. Okay, cutting wheels need to be replaced depending on how often, how busy the actual store is. But normally, once every 3 to 4 months, something along that line, you might have to replace the cutting wheels. I'll show you in a second exactly how you can tell whether this wheel is actually sharp or not, because just by the finger, that just won't do it. This is the actual nylon brush. All right, once it wears down to about maybe 1/8 of an inch over the top of the metal here, it needs to be replaced as well too. This spring, once every 2 years, it will lose tension on it as well. If you get a customer saying that the key isn't cutting quite deep enough, it's one of two things. It's either the spring is lost its tension, or the cutting wheel is dull and you need to replace it. And we'll show you how to do that both in a second. The actual tools that you need, this is a 13mm wrench, and an adjustable wrench as well too for taking the cutting wheel and the brush off the machine. A Phillips screwdriver that you'll need just to take the screws off the side of the machine. An Allen key kit. There is this is the English one. Okay, you should carry one of those as well too, because when you need to adjustments on the depth of the wheel, you'll need that unit as well. This here is just a key cylinder. Once you've done all the maintenance on the key machine, okay, you could take the actual key out of the cylinder, all right, put this in the machine, cut a key off the display, all right, take the new key that was cut, put it back into the cylinder, all right, and turn the cylinder to make sure it works. That way you know for sure that you have a properly operating key cutting machine. Okay, we're back here to the key machine. The first thing I'm going to do is determine whether or not the cutting wheel blade is dull or not, and there's a very simple way to do that. If you can actually wet your finger and touch the filings that are directly always underneath the blade, and if you look at the actual filings, this one is actually not so bad. You can see that there's nice big chips in here. That indicates that the blade is in pretty good shape. If you did that and looked at the finger and you saw that it was basically dust, all right, or a powder, all right, that's basically telling you that that cutting wheel is actually gnawing at the wheel, and it's creating a powder, and that blade needs to be changed. Okay, and we're going to show you that in just a second. In order to get into the guts of the actual machine, there's 2 screws, 1 screw at the back, 1 screw at the side. You just take a Phillips screwdriver, all right, and I'll take this one off. I've taken the one off on the back already, all right. The casing is now ready to come off the machine. So if you push back a bit from the back and you lift up at the back, pull the casing towards you, the casing comes right off the machine. Okay, now this is the actual guts of the machine. Very, very basic. You don't have to be a genius to figure out these machines. This is a motor, okay. This is the actual carriage block. There's a cutting wheel here and a nylon brush here. You start the machine up, the motor kicks in, it turns the pulley, okay. Once you've got the keys in the actual block, it goes across one time this way, all right, and cuts the key. And it should only have to go across once. If you need 2 or 3 passes, then you probably need to change the cutting wheel because it's dull, all right. If you walk into a store or you get a phone call and you say, my key machine is dead, it's doing absolutely nothing, that happens occasionally, okay? 9 times out of 10 is what we call the reset button on the motor. And I'm going to show this to you. If I take this machine and I just lift it up, pull it towards you, you see this red button right here. That is the actual reset button. So if somebody was cutting 20 or 30 keys in succession and the machine was starting to get very hot, or you get a power surge sometimes going through the line, all right, the safety mechanism on the motor will kick in and it will pop out. The reset button will pop out. You need to go back in, or you need to tell them to just take the lid off the machine, go back, see the red button, push it good and hard till you hear a click, and that'll reset the circuit inside the machine and it'll start to go again. Okay, that's one of the most obvious things and basic things that happens to this machine. Can save you a lot of kilometers on your vehicle by just making that phone call first and asking, does the machine go on and off? If it doesn't go off and on, it's probably the reset button. Okay, if you've determined, all right, that the key machine has a dull cutting wheel and the brush needs to be replaced, I'll show you that very basically. Okay, there's a spindle here right beside the cutting wheel. This is very, very simple, guys. All right, you put the 13mm wrench on the spindle, okay, and hold it down, and take your adjustable wrench. I'm going to change the nylon brush first. Just pull it down, loosen that one off, and I'm going to change the cutting wheel as well. So I'm going to put the wrench on the nut here, loosen it off, okay, take my tools away, and we'll just take the nuts, one off the nylon brush, one off the cutting wheel, pull off the nylon brush and replace it with a new one that I have. Take the nut, put it back on, guys. All right, cutting wheel, you have to be careful. All right, if you take a look at the actual cutting wheel, all right, there is an angle on it. It's cut down on a 45-degree angle, and you want to make sure that the top of the angle is on the left-hand side. So when you take the old one off, have the new one ready to go on, so you put it on exactly the same way. All right. Off comes a washer and the cutting wheel. New cutting wheel goes on. Washer back on, and the nut. Come on, baby. There we go. Okay, tighten them back up. Again, wrench on the spindle. Just give it a quick tug and a quick tug. And now that key machine has a new cutting wheel and a new brush. Okay, the only thing really left to do is to set the machine to make sure that it's cutting properly. All right, and I'm going to show you a little trick of the trade here. If you take two keys which are exactly the same, set one up in the right hand side block, okay, and set one up in the left hand side block. All right, turn the machine on. Here we go. All right. The reason it took me a second for that to turn that machine is on most Home Depot stores have a little keypad that you need to turn on first before the machine will actually take on if it's a safety mechanism. Getting back to the key machine here, if you watch, if I lift this up and I run the key across, and you hear just that little tick, 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 that tells you that this key machine is set up perfectly, okay? If I were to run it across and you heard a grind going all the way across, that means that the cutting wheel is cutting too deep. And if I were to run it across again and you heard nothing at all, that means that the machine is not cutting deep enough. To rectify it, you take your Allen key, there's a little screw at the top of the hole here, all right, and the Allen key goes in. Loosen it off, okay, and right back here there's a knob. It turns either clockwise or counterclockwise, and when you turn that knob, it moves this pin back and forth, which automatically adjusts the depth of the cutting wheel on the wheel. So you play with that a little bit. Once you've got it at the right depth, you take this, you take the Allen key, all right, tighten it back up again, okay, double check it again to make sure that it's just making that nice little ticking sound like that, and you know you've set it up properly. That, gentlemen, is basically the basics of this particular key cutting machine. If you have any questions whatsoever, give me a phone call, 1-800-265-8710. That's our office, and that should do it. Thank you.